All right, students. We've been multiplying and dividing with mixed numbers. Now let's try adding and subtracting. A couple of things before we start. When we add or subtract with fractions, we've got to think common denominators. Secondly, I might do these a little differently than you learned them in the past, but the way that I do them is consistent with the way that you should think about them in future algebra classes. You know what I'm going to do. I'm going to change all mixed numbers into improper fractions. Let's change 6½ into improper. 6 times 2 plus 1. And change 4 2/3 into an improper fraction. 4 times 3 plus 2. Now common denominators. Well, I notice that 2 and 3 are consecutive numbers. When my denominators are consecutive numbers, I can multiply them together to get a good common denominator. For the numerators, what do you multiply times 2 to get 6? Is 3. And what do you multiply times 3 to get 6? That's 2. Now keep the common denominator and subtract 39 minus 28. That's a great answer. Let's change it back into a mixed number. Keep the common denominator. 6 goes into 11 once, with 5 left over. Got it. Let's try number 2. Step number 1, change them both into improper fractions. 4 times 6 plus 5. 1 times 3 plus 1. Now common denominators. Well, this time I noticed that the small denominator divides evenly into the big denominator, which makes the big denominator a good common denominator. What do you multiply times 6 to get itself? Is 1. And what do you multiply times 3 to get 6? Is 2. Now keep the common denominator and add the numerators. That's a great answer. As a mixed number, how many times does 6 go into 37? It goes in 6 times. 6 times 6 is 36. From 37 is a remainder of 1. Let's practice some more. Change these into improper fractions. Keep the common denominator. 50 plus 3. Keep the denominator. 5 plus 4. Now common denominators. Does the small denominator divide evenly into the big denominator? It does. So use 10. Now what do you multiply times 10 to get itself? Is 1. And what do you multiply times 5 to get 10? That's 2. Now keep the common denominator and subtract 53 minus 18. That's 35. That's a nice improper fraction. Let's make it a mixed number. How many times does 10 go into 35? 3 times, with 5 left over. Now that's a great answer, but can I reduce? Does 5 over 10 reduce? Let's make this one even better. I can take 5 over 10, divide by 5, divide by 5. 5 over 10 is the same as 1 over 2. I like 3 1/2 as the best final answer. For number 4, Let's make this whole number look like a fraction. Put it over 1. And then change this mixed number into an improper fraction. 2 times 7 is 14, plus 3 is 17. Now common denominators. Does the small denominator divide evenly into the big denominator? Certainly. 1 divides into 7. 7's a good common denominator. What do you multiply times 1 to get 7? Is 7. What do you multiply times 7 to get itself? Is 1. Now keep that common denominator and subtract. 28 minus 17 is 11. And how many times does 7 go into 11? Once, with 4 left over. Beautiful. Here's exactly the way I want you to show your work. Copy the problem, rewrite the problem using improper fractions, get that common denominator, add or subtract, change it back into a mixed number. The things that I do in red, you can leave those little red markings out. Do those in your head if you can. Most of you are already doing that. All right, your turn to go work some homework. Work hard. I'll see you later on today.